to Dr. Ahmed YouTube channel. Today I'm going to screen record a little portion of chapter 1 of the novel The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. I have already recorded 4 lectures on this chapter which are available in the form of series 1, 2, 3, 4 on YouTube, my channel. And this aspect was somehow ignored in the past lectures, and that is why I decided to start with this one also. As far as the novel is concerned, everybody knows that here are plenty of characters which are playing their different parts and are having their stories as well. Amu has her own story, God of Small Thing. Velutha does have his own story. Same is the case with many other people which are discussed in this novel. In chapter 1 is really the chapter in which, like a drama, all characters and conflicts are introduced that we are able to understand what is going to happen in the next coming chapters. This chapter is quite long, and so that is why it has got almost everything which is needed to kickstart the story of the novel. So that is why the students can find number of other aspects as well. I have already tried to cover some of the aspects, but now the political aspect in this novel was not discussed by me already. For this purpose, we need to go to the chapter 1 and page number 7 that we will be able to find the political aspect. Here is page 3 and it goes for page 4, then definitely 5 and 6, and ultimately we reach the page 7. It is here, and other things are being discussed, but alongside that we will be finding some of the political aspect at the end of the page 7. Now I must say that according to the post-colonial theory, the text and the fiction which is being written these days, these are most of the time political in nature because they talk about the political history and the sufferings of the people during colonial era and the struggle of the people how they did so. And these two themes can be further applied in all these post-colonial theories, even if the colonial master is not being discussed, because we are left with the other colonial masters, as Fanon would point out, that after the departure or decolonization, we have local masters, and they are trying to play the role of the white man, and that is why this type of situation is everywhere present. But besides having this theme of political nature of the post-colonial text most of the time, we have here an inclusion of communism in Indian state of Kerala, which is depicted and portrayed in this novel by Arundhati Roy. So we have the leaders which are present here, the communist leaders, and a sizable minority, I should say, are present in the Indian democracy about the communist parties. They used to exist in the other parts of the other countries as well, but the kind of success which they achieved, partial success, let us say, that was gained by the communist people in India. Communism or communist parties are a type of reflection and representation of Russia and China, the system which they evolved, and the result of that they had come in in the arenas which are set by the capitalistic states, and that is why somehow it was undermined, but it does exist somewhere here and there. So, in this novel as well, we have the description of this type of thing, the communist political systems, and that is why on page 7, the very small 435 lines do and indicate towards the kind of political aspect that will be discussed here. For example, let's read it. Sometimes Esther walked past Lucky Press, old comrade Pillai, printing press, once the Eminem office of the Communist Party, where midnight study meetings were held and pamphlets with rousing lyrics of Marxist party songs were printed and distributed. The flag that fluttered on the roof had grown limp and old. The red had bled away. This is the current situation of the communistic element described in this chapter in the same way as many other situations are described in a ripe manner. For example, the death of death of Sophie Mole that has been talked about in this chapter in the beginning. That is also taken at the mature level of the story. Same is the case here. We are not told in the beginning how did it happen, what kind of party did exist, and what was the system there. But we are told at that moment where the party is in not good condition because the office is not working well And the meetings, though, were held there, pamphlets were published here, party songs were there, but right now, even the flag has become limp and old, and these things are not happening in the way as they used to happen in the past. So, as the other stories would unfold in the remaining portions of the novel, same would be the case with this story of communism in India, in the state of Kerala. Same things would be happening with the passage of time. So, that is the kickstart with which we can imagine that the writer has included the communist parties, political aspect and political system, and their existence inside India, and the kind of presence of the people as well who would like to associate and align themselves with the Communist Party, and why they couldn't have it, what was the reason behind it, that ultimately the party was having very poor performance. Kenan Pillai is going to be the most important character here, and Esther goes to meet him, to see him. But what is the condition of Esther? That's again another matter. So that is why let's proceed and go deep in the other portions to see what Comrade Pillai was doing. For example, Comrade Pillai himself came out in the mornings in the green Arctic's vest, his ball saluted against a soft white mandu. He oiled himself with warm, peppered coconut oil, kneading his old loose flesh that stretched, willing off his bones like chewing gum. He lived alone now. His wife, Kalyani, had died of the ovarian cancer. His son, Lenin, had moved to Delhi, where he worked as a services contractor for the foreign embassies. If Comrade Pillai was outside his house oiling himself and Esther walked past, he made it point to greet him, Estamon. He would call it out in his high, piping voice, frayed and fibrous now like sugar cane. Stripped of its bark, good morning, your daily constitutional. Esther would walk past, not rude, not polite, just quiet. Comrade Ply would slap himself and all over to get his circulation going. He couldn't tell whether Esther recognized him after all those years or not. Not that he particularly cared, though his part in the whole thing had by no means been a small one. Comrade Ply didn't hold himself in any way personally responsible for what had happened. He dismissed the whole business as the inevitable consequence of necessary politics, the old omelette and egg thing. But then, Comrade Kenan Pillai was essentially a political man, a professional emulator. He walked through the world like a chameleon, never revealing himself, never appearing, not to emerging through chaos and answer cats. So these are some of the passages where the writer has thrown more light on the head of Communist Party, K.N.M. Pillai, who lived in the same place where Esther, Amu, Valuetha, all these people were living, but at a little distance. So that is why the writer is giving us the type of connection which existed between Esther, his family, and K.N.M. Pillai, the leader of Communist Party. He had become an old man, and that is why most of the time he was massaging himself, he was kneading his body, he's become a very old person, his skin was down, and as a result, he was making certain exercises in such a way that he could be feeling young once again and leading his party, but it was not possible because his own son, as we see in the fourth line of this paragraph, Lenin, he had moved to Delhi, and as a result, this is a similar kind of situation as we had in case of Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, where the where the protagonist Okonkwo's son, Nawai, was the person to immediately convert to Christianity when Christianity reached there. Same is the case here that the son of Kenan Pillai, who was the leader of the Communist Party, Lenin, he is gone out and is no more practicing in the same way as he should. So this condition of Kenan Pillai and his going of the son is indicative of the fact that the party has become old, the functioning of the party has become weak, and party desperately needs the massage, desperately needs the energy with which it can go forward. Otherwise, it was losing its ground. So we are feeling to be present at a place where the Communist Party was losing its hold. No more it was powerful, but still the leaders were holding its own because of their own political interests and natures, and that is why Kenan Pillai was also holding on. The writer has, in a very clear tone, described that although party was dying and the leader was dying, but still he was holding its own. So that is the background with the story of this Communist Party can be had. Let us move on to page number 32 in order to continue with the story of political struggle of communist people and Communist Party in India. So rapidly, I'm taking you to page 32 because the story continues there. And page 32 is also once again included in chapter 1 along with many other stories. The story of the Kenam Pillai and his Communist parties here. For example, here on page 32, we have once again the description of the same party, but with the inclusion of many other characters. Like Choco was himself proclaimed Marxist, he would call pretty women who worked in the factory to his room and on the pretext of lecturing them on labor rights and trade union law, flirt with them outrageously. He would call them comrade and insist that they call him comrade back. Much to their embarrassment and Mamachi's dismay, he forced them to sit at the table with him and drink tea. So here, inclusion of Chaco in a very humorous way has been done. That he was taking interest in the pretty women, and he would call them close. But one thing is quite important, that he would give them the same place, equality place of sitting and having tea as he himself used the same place. Though this was resented by other people, especially Mamachi, why it is happening, because Mamachi was having class distinction, the caste system of India in her mind, but Chaco wouldn't have it. Though it may be because of the girls, but it is Chaco's own interest in being the comrade or the communist, because they do want to have equality. So in that way, the trade union was there and the other things were happening. So that is why there's a kind of description of the functioning of the party as well. Going down, we can see that, look down, for example, Baby Kuchama said as the front ranks of the procession approached the car, a wide eye contact, that is what really provokes them. On the side of her neck, her pulse was pounding. Within minutes, the road was swamped by thousands of marching people, automobile island in a river of people. The air was red with the flag, which dipped and lifted as the marchers ducked under the level crossing gate and swept across the railway tracks in the red wave. So this is what we have the people who are on the road and they're protesting in favor of communist or the labor class people, and they are quite large in number. As a result, the writer goes to talk about the redness of the flags and that the whole road has become red, and everybody was trying to look at the function or at the procession, but nobody wanted to become the part of that. That is why they didn't want to create any resentment in the mind of the protesters, and that is why it said that they shouldn't look direct eye contact. But whatever could be found was the red flag or the kind of slogans which were being raised, for example, in Club Zindabad and Zalali Ikta Zindabad and Long Live the Revolution, all these things were being said by the protesters, and that is what the Communist Party was doing, that was reacting against certain policies of the capitalistic majority. And Chaco was one of the leaders of these people in the same way as KNM Pillai was the leader of these people. In order to have a little bit more understanding of that, we need to have a, a kind of understanding of this whole thing by looking what is happening in India. For example, India did have the majorities and then minorities, and Congress Party and the capitalistic vision of these people. They were all trying to gain the control, but in Kerala, it was a different case because Communist Party did have the winning of the election as well, and they were holding their own, and they were a type of party. And that is why a few more lines would be dedicated to this thing in order to show the realism of the novel by Arundhati Rai. For example, she says here, the real secret was that communism crept into Kerala insidiously. As a reformist movement that never overtly questioned the traditional values of a caste and extremely traditional community, the Marxists worked from within the communal divides, never challenging them, never appearing not to. They offered cocktail revolution, a heady mix of Eastern Marxism and Orthodox Hinduism, spiked with a shot of democracy. Though Chaco was not a card holding member of the party, he had been converted early and had remained, through all its travails, a committed supporter. Now, here Roy has brought something very important in order to let us know why Communist Party was taking hold and why it was taking ground. First of all, we should see that India was a caste-ridden society, as the writer says. So it was quite possible that the people who are oppressed by the rich people, powerful people, they could be attracted to the party, which would give equal status to everybody, regardless of the factor of the caste system. So that is why this party was gaining ground, and Marxism was present there. But whatever these things may be, we are able to understand that the real Hinduism, Orthodox Hinduism, as well as the Eastern Marxism, they were a kind of head strongly against each other, and they were not accepting each other. But still, the real spirit of Hinduism and the spirit of Marxism were quite close to each other, but still it was not possible. So that is why the struggle was going on, the protest was going on, and Checo was one of the members of that. And similarly, we have some of the more descriptions of this political system described by Roy. For example, she says he was an undergraduate at Delhi University during the euphoria of 1957 when the communists won the state assembly election and Nehru invited them to form a government. Chako's hero comrade EMS Nam Budri Pad, the flamboyant Brahmin, high priest of Marxism in Kerala, became chief minister of the first ever democratically elected communist government in the world. Suddenly, the communists found themselves in the extraordinary, critics said, absurd position of having to govern a people and foment revolution simultaneously. Comrade EMS evolved his own theory about how he would do this. Chaco studied his treatise on the peaceful transition to communism with an adolescent obsessive diligence and ardent fans' unquestioning approval. It set out in detail how Comrade MS uh, Num to the repeat, government intended to enforce land reforms, neutralize the police, subvert the judiciary, and restrain the hand of the reactionary anti-people Congress government at the center. Unfortunately, before the year was out, the peaceful part of the peace transition came to an end. So this is what the gist of the story is, that in Kerala state it was possible for the Communist Party to win the election, and that is why the government was made by them. They became the uh, controller of the province, and so that is why the revolutionary movement could not go in that way as it should go, because revolutions are done outside the government. In the government, there are many problems that one has to face. One of the important leaders, that EMS comrade, Nambu Diripad, I don't know what the real pronunciation may be, but this is what I can pronounce, that was present. He became the chief minister of the province and he tried to run the system. He had the idea that being the representative of the Communist Party, he should be able to bring certain reforms in order to neutralize the police, subvert the judiciary, and do whatever good he can do for his people. But very soon, all these things disappeared and his party lost the importance. So, in this way, Communist Party's existence in Kerala, Communist parties working in Kerala, their protest, their revolution, their participation, their effect upon the people, their gaining of the government, their elections, all these things have been described by Roy in order to let us understand where from the text is coming up and who else was working hard in order to establish the rule of the poor and the laborer people, as the trade union of these people could be the ruler in communist countries. All these things have been talked about by Roy. So Roy, in fact, is trying to talk about the rights of the people who are oppressed and depressed people who couldn't gain their rights because of the existence of certain capitalistic system. She probably is trying to envision that there could be the rights of the people if capitalistic system is not there, because it is the oppressive system according to her, the caste system, the power system, and the capitalistic system. So rights could be achieved by the communist people. That is the vision of Roy, and that's why we can say that the Marxist element, the communistic element, the political element has also been widely discussed by Roy in the very first chapter. So that is the description which I wanted to give my students so that they can complete the first chapter by joining this video, this rather screen reading, with the other 4 videos which are already available on my YouTube channel to understand this chapter fully. So thank you very much for watching and understanding. Hopefully if you gained something, do not fail to hit the subscribe button and like this video as well. If there are certain questions you may upload on YouTube, I may be trying to answer them as well. So thank you. See you in some next video.